On your YouTube channel, you obviously Sarah and Luke Off-Grid Life, but and you talk a lot about self-sufficiency. How close are you to being self-sufficient now? But equally, is it realistic to be completely self-sufficient, or where does that line sit between producing everything you need without alienating yourself from the rest of the world?
I don't think it's realistic to be totally self-sufficient. It's very difficult. I mean, there's some things you just can't grow in certain countries, obviously. I mean, we're not going to be growing rice or sugarcane or wheat, There's some things you can't produce. I mean, your climate and won't allow it.
And even the work that goes into these things, it's just easier. We'll never be totally self-sufficient. I mean, we're pretty far away from it as well.
Very far away. It's a very long road, and our piece of land, even though when we were first looking for land, we had all the criteria, we want fruit trees and we want this and we want that and we want the other. But when we saw a piece of land which pretty much had no fruit trees at all on it, it had some olive trees, a couple of fig trees, and that's pretty much it. So these things obviously take time. We did plant 30 different fruit trees, and we also did plant more, but you have to take into consideration that you have to water these young trees, and if you have them spread out over 17 hectares, it's just going to be your full-time job trying to keep these things alive in the hot Portuguese summer,
Yeah, so that quite a few of them died, and we gave up on them.
Yeah, we definitely learned to keep everything closer, for now, and we can plant fruit trees all over the land, but in stages.
Yeah.
So as we grow our farm, we can plant more. But yeah, we're pretty far away. I mean, we do grow quite a few veggies, especially more in summer, obviously. And we are concentrating a bit more on the perennial side of things, so for the future, if we have so many hours of gardening in us, we try and put them all into perennials.
So for those of you who follow the We Get Outdoors podcast and YouTube channel, you know that we like to talk to people who don't necessarily do things in the usual way. They've chosen to break free of maybe the cubicle or what everybody thinks they should be doing and follow their own path. And today's couple is no different. Sarah and Luke from Off-Grid Life, welcome to the We Get Outdoors podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So we've had a little teaser then, but where are you and what is this Off-Grid Life that you get up to?
So when we first bought this land 3 years ago, it had absolutely nothing on it, just a lot of bushes and things hidden underneath the bushes, which we are finding out slowly, and they're all amazing. But whatever we did, we had to clear a lot of land to do stuff in. So everything is taking long, and we're learning a lot along the way.
Definitely a big.
We had never lived a life like this before, so everything was looking up on YouTube to learn more about it. And this is where we are today. We know a little bit more than we did 3 years ago, and we're a lot more comfortable than we were 3 years ago.
For sure.
So what was it that took you to the place of saying, we're going to go and buy some land that needs the rest of our lives pouring into it in Portugal and go and do something unique with it?
So I guess we're both from Malta, which is a tiny island in the middle of the Mediterranean, which is super, super overpopulated. And we spent about 10 years traveling around the world pretty much. And then going back to Malta after that was a bit of a shock for us. So we had kind of a reverse culture shock. Because Malta is 22 miles by 19 or something stupid like that. And there's 500,000 people living there. So everyone lives in flats, and There's not much nature and no wildlife apart from stray dogs and stray cats. And after 10 years, just seeing the world and the amazing natural beauty and everything, yeah, we had this huge culture shock. And yeah, so we had spent 2 years in Malta. We opened a food truck, tried to settle in Malta because we did miss our family and friends, as you do. But yeah, after 2 years, we couldn't take it anymore. So we decided to leave. And we were planning to move to New Zealand because we absolutely love New Zealand. It's just so amazing. Everywhere you look is like a postcard. The people are amazing. But yeah,
that was too far.
That was a bit too far away. Yeah, it's just like if we had to move to New Zealand, our family and friends would probably only ever visit once in their lifetime. We imagined anyway, because it's so far away,
But when we packed our bags and left, we actually sold everything and decided we're going to go to New Zealand. That was
the plan. Yeah.
But we said let's stop off in America before because we have friends there and we really wanted to do this PCT.
The Pacific
Crest Trail, which is walking from Mexico to Canada. So we packed our bags and went there, and the destination was going to be New Zealand.
Yeah, that was that was the best feeling ever. Just selling because we did have a house in Malta. So we sold our house, we sold a kilo backpack and the bank account pretty much, which was, it's one of the best feelings in the world, just not having any stuff and just feeling so free and everything. And then we were on the Pacific Crest Trail. It was 2017, I think,
Yes.
Which was one of the worst years to attempt to do the Pacific Crest Trail, just because of the amount of snow. We only did about a third of it, which was about 800 miles.
Around 800 to 900 miles.
As soon as we got to the Sierra Nevada, it was just insane. The amount of snow was like record snowfall in 7 or 10 years or something. And yeah, it was
getting very dangerous.
It was super dangerous. A lot of people died, in fact, that year, either through water crossings, trying to cross rivers and stuff, falling through frozen waterfalls, So yeah, and me and Sarah kind of have this thing where if we're not enjoying ourselves, even though we do like that adrenaline rush and everything, and all the excitement of trekking and mountains and stuff, as soon as it becomes life-threatening and not as much fun, we kind of move on,
Yeah, it can wait, and places can still be as beautiful as ever, and we do it another time.
Yeah.
So we got off the
I remember we had a very close call in the mountains. We were supposed to go from it was supposed to take us about 3 or 4 days to go from one place to another before we resupply. And it took us about 10 days, which was really, really scary. It was, we
didn't think we were going to make it out of there.
No. And
there were too many close calls. We were with another guy who was like 60 years old. He wasn't very well prepared either. And he slept. And
he didn't have an ice axe. And we're going down this piece and he slipped and it was just a nightmare anyway. So we decided to move on. And we thought once we're in the States, we might as well visit everywhere we always wanted to visit. So we decided to buy a van. We converted it into a camper. And we spent the next 5 months, I think, traveling around the States. We visited 48 of the states.
Wow.
And then we planned, it was really amazing. We really loved America. It was just so amazing, especially we're not city folk, we don't like cities when we travel. So we really did enjoy, especially the west coast of America. It was,
all the national parks,
and Arizona, and
it has
Yellowstone. It was just so amazing.
And I got brought up on like 1950s musicals, and there were so many places that I could see that I used to see in films that I just loved America.
That's so cool.
And from there we decided, well, we've got a camper, a van, we might as well go down to Central and South America. So we made our way down. We drove all the way through Mexico. And And by the time we got down to the south, to Oaxaca, which is an absolutely beautiful place, we absolutely love it there. We were it was a bit too hot to sleep in the van. And in some places it was quite dodgy as well. So we ended up kind of staying in hotels and, I mean, paying for fuel and everything to drag a bed basically in the back of the van for nothing. Yeah. And kind of the enjoyment level per dollar wasn't quite there for us, you know, because we're paying all that fuel to drive and everything. And yeah, it was a bit expensive
compared to America, where we were. We were sleeping in rest stops, and they had free campsites, and it was really a good way of saving money
in America.
America. But then
it was strange because, you know, you go down to Mexico and you think it's going to be quite cheap, you know, but even fuel is more expensive than America, and if you're driving, you know, that's a big factor.
Yeah.
And so we decided, because we did have the funds from our house and the business, and we were seeing it go down quite a bit, and we kind of thought to each other, it's going down quick. Maybe we should go and buy a piece of land and invest the money in that before we spend it all, basically. Also, while we were doing the PCT, walking 20 miles a day, you have a lot of time to think, obviously. So we're always racking our brains, thinking where we're going to go. We should go somewhere in Europe instead of so far away in New Zealand. Anyway, in Oaxaca, in Mexico, I came across this site called Pure Portugal, with properties for sale in Portugal, and we were just blown away.
Yeah, then we made this our full-time job, just looking for properties in Portugal. It was the amount of the good amount of land that you can get, which is something that we wanted for an affordable price, which is for us, it was out of this world, because we thought wherever we start off, we're going to have to work and then save and then buy a huge piece of land that we wanted. But yeah, we came here and it was... Yeah,
we saw property. It was like 5,000 for a small piece of land. We're like, what, in Malta? I mean, property is so expensive.
They'll buy you a postage stamp in Malta.
Yeah. So we literally, I think 3 or 4 days after we first found out how affordable property is in Portugal, we literally did a U-turn and drove up back to the States, straight up to San Francisco. We sold our van, and we were in Portugal, I think, like 2 weeks after we saw this site.
Yes, we had never been here before, and Luke sold it to me this way. He said, because I love animals, and he said, you know what, Portugal is cheap, and there's a really nice walk you can do, a trek.
The Camino, I'm sure you've heard of it, the Camino.
Yep. And we were really into trekking and walking, obviously, and he's like, and we can do it with a donkey. And I was like, oh my goodness, I want to go there. Where can we go there?
Yeah, that idea was basically, we had just spent, 800 miles carrying a heavy backpack.
Yep.
So I thought, a donkey might be nice.
Anyway. A friend of mine has been talking for years about setting up a alpaca or llama business on the Camino. Do you have those instead of donkeys? He's never quite got round to it, but I think it would be people would love to have something like an alpaca or a llama carrying your bag for you.
For sure. That would be so cute.
Nice.
Wow.
So then I mean, another reason, one of the main reasons why we decided is to even look for land to try and attempt to live this life, is that over the past 10, 15 years with all this traveling, we never even had a dog, obviously, because it's quite difficult to travel. People do, but it makes everything a bit harder, obviously. And so as animals, any type of animal, I mean, all throughout, that connection is unstable. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Yeah.
You back?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So every time, wherever we were always kind of any street dogs, and feeding them. And that's always when she's happiest. I love animals too, but she's like a whole other level where she treats them like a human and has full-blown conversations with them. And we always visited, we always went trekking and visited animal like orphanages, or it was always about animals.
Yeah,
so
even just in the car, as soon as we see donkeys on the
yeah,
side of the road,
we stop.
We have carrots in the car ready to give them.
So I thought, might as well, once we do have a decent enough chunk of money left after all the travels, maybe that's what makes most sense, to go for it now. So yeah, that's what we did. And then we came to Portugal, spent about 2 months, I think, driving all around Portugal, looking at properties. And this place, Castelo Branco, kept coming up just for the affordability and value for money. We're seeing amazing properties for so cheap. And yeah, that's what brought us here, basically. And then we saw our piece of land, and it was quite bigger than what we planned, because we wanted 5 acres, which apparently is like the
magic number.
The magic number, for self-sufficiency. Ours is 42 acres, so quite a bit bigger. But we decided, we want it, and we don't care if we can't afford to completely transform it the way we want to straight away. And we're willing to
work hard
put the rest of our lives work into it. And we bought it,
How was it? Because you've obviously spent a whole number of years where you've been like a vagabond in some respects, but you've been traveling. You've had your backpack and yourselves, and that's been you. And then you transition then into this. Well, this plot of land is now home, and we're not traveling anymore. How was that transition for you?
It wasn't that hard, actually, because it was still like we spent a lot of time camping, and this was very, very similar to that. Everything that we had to do was like this. First it was hard work just to wash the dishes and wash the clothes and wash ourselves. And then we slowly got a compost toilet and then a shower. Anyway, so it was quite an easy transition.
Yeah, we're pretty used to this kind of life, as in we spent many years living in vans, living in tents, living in cars, while traveling, because we do like traveling by road a lot in countries. So we've done Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, the States, India, all by either car, bike, or van.
Yeah, we love road trips.
So we're kind of very used to not having those, what we call or used to call luxuries, which is like running water and a proper toilet or whatever. So when it came to that, it wasn't much of a shock at all for us, obviously.
No. And the fact that our land is just so wild, even till now, that it's more like we're still exploring the land. It hasn't gotten boring. It's not like we found a piece of land, we put something to live on, and now we have water, food, and we garden. It's not like that. We're not at that stage at all. I clean the land with the 3 goats we have every day, and we're always finding new things, like new boulders and terraces and amazing walls, and it's just a lot of discovering still. So it's still so exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like in 20 years' time when we're all done and finished, but it probably won't be done and finished in 20 years either. But then maybe we'll start getting bored of it. I don't know. I can't see how that would be, because we'll have more animals then and more. Yeah, but it's.
I still do want to travel in the future, and
yes.
Just because we do have this piece of land doesn't mean we can't, but for now we're just super happy to be here and still totally in love with the country and our land. So I don't know how long the honeymoon stage lasts, but it's still the honeymoon stage.
Let's hope it lasts 50 or 60 years, hey?
Let's hope we last 50 or 60 years.
Well, I'm listening to your story because I've just bought 9 acres in the South African countryside up on a mountain surrounded by forests. And I move in 6 weeks' time. And so I'm very curious. This is very relevant to where my life is heading to very quickly.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago a whole series of things like compost toilets and things that you've built.
Yes.
Did you have all of that experience and knowledge before you bought the land, or did you just buy it and then figured it out as you go?
Yeah, no, we had no knowledge of it.
Absolutely nothing. Total beginners. We come from Malta, which is a bit like a big city, like Luke said. So everything was new, from digging a hole in the ground to plant a seed, for everything, to the compost toilet, getting to know worms and how to better your soil, building.
Everything. I mean,
every single thing.
Nowadays, we're so lucky.
Oh, I've lost you.
All the time. Like when you live off grid, it's. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When you live off grid, everything seems to break down at the wrong time. And we had to get used to. For example, we're from Malta, so it's not a very cold country. And over here, it's not very cold, but the winters can get pretty cold. And last winter, all our pipes froze and we weren't ready for it. So we had a couple of injuries to our
equipment.
And we had to change a few things. So 3 things went at the same time, like our water heater and the water pump and something else. I can't remember.
2 pumps. 2 pumps.
2 pumps. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. No, but I don't know if that's why we always traveled. I kind of get bored living the kind of normal, go to work, come back home and all this. And I get bored of things very easily. And over here, living this kind of life, we're constantly learning things, which is really important to us. Just always learning new things. And also the fact that you're not doing the same thing every day. Our lives are just so random. It's like, one day you're doing this, the other day, I don't know, I'm building the vermicomposting toilet. Then the next day I'm going up to put a yurt up for a friend, or the next day I'm milling pine trees. It's just so
it's good for him.
So varied. I love it. Variety is definitely the spice of life.
For me, with animals, it's not as varied because there's a lot of things I have to do that's the same. But I'm very good with this normal way of living. So Lou gets very bored of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm good with routine, and the goats and all the animals love routine, so I have to kind of stick to a routine with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, still exciting though, because we're still clearing land and finding new things, which is what I love doing the most.
That's super. Thank goodness for YouTube, eh?
Definitely.
Oh yes,
definitely.
We wouldn't have gotten anywhere without YouTube, because we'd need a good encyclopedia, and it won't be up to date anyway. And I don't know how people used to manage before. I tell you.
So there's plenty of people out there who want to go and I don't know, buy a Spanish village, for instance, because you can buy Spanish villages quite affordably.
Oh, yeah.
A Portuguese piece of land, or who knows, somewhere in the world. But what are 2 or 3 of the things that you wish you'd already known how to do before you moved to your property?
Interesting. I'm not quite sure, to be honest.
This is a really hard question.
Well, I guess I wish I was a bit more mechanically inclined, which still hasn't happened.
I know what I wish, that we'd thought about some certain things that we bought, not what we knew, but how to spend our money more wisely. That's one very, very important thing. It's not about knowledge, it's about thinking about things properly before you decide to spend your hard-earned money on them.
It's like as well, because I remember when we first bought our land, one of our good friends told me, so what are you going to start? We're like, what are you going to start with? What are you going to do first? But we had no idea really. We kind of did everything out of necessities. So, for example, I don't know. Obviously, first thing was.
It's really.
Oh, are you?
First thing was the toilet. Yeah, if we knew more of what to do first and what equipment we need, maybe we would have spent our money more wisely. Because in the beginning, obviously, we had more money because we've been here 3 years, so it was just going down, our finances.
Yep.
So we did do a few purchases that just didn't make sense at the time, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe I think my advice for anyone who's doing it is kind of when you're thinking of buying anything that's semi-expensive, is wait until you're absolutely 100% sure, you know, because we did waste. We're a bit more like quick to spend the money, eh?
Definitely. I think, like, even when we first bought the land, the owner said that we can move on. So we're moving on the land to save money, renting nearby, you know, and at least we're on the land. It wasn't even ours yet, but the deal was that we would leave, obviously, if the deal fell through, but we'd have someone free to stay and we'll be clearing his land while we said, let's go and buy a caravan, which was a silly decision. We could have just bought a tent probably and been just as comfortable, and it would have been much cheaper because there were no caravans around at that time, not for a good price. And we ended up spending quite a bit of money on this broken piece of rubbish, which is now our chicken coop. So they have a really expensive chicken coop, which looks really terrible. And we've stepped up in the world, and Luke's built a gypsy caravan for us. But these things, just if we thought a little bit about them before we actually spent money on them, it would have been.
I think if you give yourself enough time to really get into this life where you're trying to, I guess, consume less and spend less and be a bit more budget weary kind of thing, because, you know, when you have a decent balance in your bank balance, you're a bit more, you know, you spend more money, and you're not in that frame of mind. Like now, we're much more
frugal,
tight.
It's frugal.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that I wish we had done.
Yeah. Like, as a knowledge, though, we knew so little about everything. I don't know what would have helped, you know, if we knew more about something, or I have no idea, because the question was that you wish you knew anything before.
I guess maybe a bit more about gardening and permaculture would help. Even now.
We're having one of the worst years for our garden, actually. The first year was really good, and the second year, and the third year.
Yeah, but we didn't put the work in.
We didn't put the work in because we got goats, so that's kind of, it took a back seat. But
maybe as well, another thing, maybe a bit more about keeping animals, because
yes,
you know, I mean, now we know, like, we never had goats before, you know, so now, you know, I wish we knew more back then, because it would have made our life easier, you know, like,
true.
For example, starting small, you know, like now we only have 3 goats because one ran away and one died. But yeah, we wish we started with only females, as a beginner, and the very small
herd. You know, they say it's not good to get 1 goat, but 2 is very good. At least you're learning slowly with them,
and you can ease into it, you know, so you can learn slowly, because they are a handful. I mean, and they get sick, you know, and if you don't know anything and you have a lot, it's more of a headache.
Yeah.
So just take things slowly, I guess, when it comes to animal husbandry. And
yes, and I think maybe if you get when the lives are at stake, obviously, I wish we learned more before we get them, because obviously it can result to animals dying. And the second year, I think, or it wasn't the first year that we got chickens, we knew nothing either, but we didn't even know the hot summers, it makes them overheat. And the first year that we had chickens in the summer, 3 died in a matter of 2 days from overheating. So if we had known how to cool them down straight away, not learning stuff like this after we've lost our chickens, for us and for the chickens.
For sure.
So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because, you know, you could spend, or people do spend decades YouTubing and learning before making the move. And some people just learn in theory all the stuff they need to know and never make the move. And there's a very fine balance between knowing just enough to pull off the start of what you want to do, and you need that. But then after that, I think you just need to go and find the place, take action, and learn as you go, because you don't really. YouTube gives you some good ideas, but until you've got that circular saw in your hand and you're cutting your wood, it's only theory, and the practice can often be very different.
Of course, and even just the gardening and stuff, the amount of work that I did looking up stuff, but then one YouTube video tells you this way, and the other YouTube video tells you that way is not the right way. So you do have to trial and error, and not every place is the same, not the soil is the same. People's experiences are different, so they might think it worked for them, but it doesn't work for you.
And not only that, I mean, for me, before we did this, if I watch loads of YouTube videos and get all this information, it doesn't stick as well in my head than actually doing it. You know, you can learn a lot of stuff, but until you actually do it, for me personally, I don't actually learn it. You know, I have to actually physically do it.
That makes sense. So on your, it makes sense for me because Luke, I'm very similar in that way. On your YouTube channel, you obviously Sarah and Luke Off-Grid Life, but and you talk a lot about self-sufficiency. How close are you to being self-sufficient now? But equally, is it realistic to be completely self-sufficient, or where does that line sit between producing everything you need without alienating yourself from the rest of the world?
I don't
think it's realistic to be totally self-sufficient. It's very difficult. I mean, there's some things you just can't grow in certain countries, obviously. I mean, we're not going to be growing rice or sugarcane or wheat, you know. There's some things you can't produce. I mean, your climate and won't allow it. And
even the work that goes into these things, it's just easier. We'll never be totally self-sufficient. I mean, we're pretty far away from it as well. Very far away.
It's a very long road, and our piece of land. Even though when we were first looking for land, we had all the criteria. You know, we want fruit trees, and we want this, and we want that, and we want the other. But when we saw our piece of land, which pretty much had no fruit trees at all on it. I mean, it had some olive trees, a couple of fig trees, and that's pretty much it. So these things obviously take time. You know, we did plant 30 different fruit trees, and we also did plant more, but you have to take into consideration that you have to water these young trees, and if you have them spread out over 17 hectares, it's just going to be your full-time job trying to keep these things alive in the hot Portuguese summer, you know?
Yeah, so that quite a few of them died, and we gave up on them.
Yeah, we definitely learned to keep everything closer, you know, for now. And we can plant fruit trees all over the land, but in stages.
Yeah.
So as we grow our farm, we can plant more. But yeah, we're pretty far away. I mean, we do grow quite a few veggies, you know, especially more in summer, obviously. And we are concentrating a bit more on the perennial side of things, you know, so for the future, if we have so many hours of gardening in us, we try and put them all into perennials. But yeah, I think, I mean, you can get quite far on the road to self-sufficiency. But over here in Portugal, there's a lot of like-minded people, especially in our area, probably because the land is so affordable. So we have a eco market, you know, and everyone is very open to bartering. So whatever you don't produce, there are ways to obviously get them, you know, which is great to have that community here.
That's cool. So you've mentioned gardening quite a few times, and you've mentioned permaculture a few times as well. And I've been using permaculture practices in my garden here in South Africa for the past 7 or 8 years to grow a lot of our vegetables. And I think we've probably both faced the same challenge, and that is that most of the permaculture information out there is put out by people who seem to live in a warm, water's very abundant. It rains every other day minimum all the way throughout the year. They seem to produce or do their permaculture and gardening in ideal climates. And you've just told me it was 40 degrees last week or something like that, centigrade, so 110 Fahrenheit. How have you adapted how you garden, or how have you adapted that information that's out there to suit the Portuguese climate?
Well, this year was a total fail, so I'm not even going to not even try and go there right now. At one point, me and Luke just looked at each other and said, okay, this year we just don't have a garden.
We'll just keep our perennials alive, and that's pretty much it this year. No, it's definitely a challenge, and I mean we're still total beginners when it comes to permaculture. One thing that we adapted to what we've seen, Humane. Do you know that, where they build up, kind of, they put the logs and then they put soil and they put the plants over them, and over the time the soil gets better because the wood breaks down and all that. And we've done this, but the first year we put a couple of what do they call the raised beds?
Raised beds. That does not work in this country. You can't have a raised bed if it's really, really hot.
Yeah, it was just baking. Right? Yeah, it was just baking.
It's just dry after 2 seconds that you water it. So we've done the Permaculture, but sunken beds. So I think it's working out well because the sunken beds do well.
And we're doing now. We're trying to minimize our work and do more of the no dig kind of layering on top.
Yes, now we're doing that into.
And water is a problem. I mean, our land we have a ruin, like a 200 square meter ruin, which we are going to restore. But we decided to set up our first homestead on the opposite side of the land. Like over there near the ruin, we have a water mine, which we could use for water. And we also have another well. But the road was just completely impassable. So we decided to set up on the other side of the land where we have like a back entrance and we have a well, but at least the road was easily accessible with our car. So we set up over here, but we only have this one well over here. So water is, we're very tight with it. I mean, that's a big problem. 2 years ago, we had spread out our garden a bit too big. So the well is spring about our limits of how much water we can use, which is an important thing to learn about your land, I guess. So now we've definitely kind of compacted everything into a smaller section so we can use less water. We have much less garden than we did the first year. It was more spread out the first 2 years. So that's one way we've definitely adapted, and we're kind of stuffing things in, give you on all the seeds, they tell you, like, I don't know, corn has to be 50 centimeters apart on this side and whatever, but we're trying to
make everything
compact
closer.
everything in closer and closer. So we have to water less and use less water, pretty much.
I know what you mean about the packet saying. At the moment, I think some people would be horrified. I've got sweet corn growing, and then underneath the sweet corn there's probably about 40 kilos of butternut squash growing at the moment there, just ready to be harvested. And as you say, life gets very time consuming if you have to walk kilometers and kilometers every day just to water the veggies.
Yeah,
definitely. And even, I mean, we did set up a little irrigation system, but I mean, the pump can only handle so much, you know what I mean? So if you have it stretched out over, I don't know, an acre or something, you're going to need much bigger equipment, and it's going to be more costly. It makes much more sense, we've learned over the last 3 years anyway, to keep everything close to you and more compact.
Yeah.
And it looks better, right?
I think it looks better.
If you can fall out of bed and be in your veggie garden, I reckon the veggie garden's just about close enough. That's my thought.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, if you don't see it, it's really hard to take care of it, because there's so much more stuff that you have to do on your land. that the veggie garden kind of, unless it's doing a lot of the work itself, it's very hard. You'll ignore it if it's somewhere far away. That's what we found out anyway. So it really has to be somewhere where you pass every day, so you can take care of it every day.
And I think that's just human nature. There's parts of all of our properties that you don't see very often that just disappear out of your mind, and I think you don't want your garden to end up in that category.
Yeah, we had like a little patch because we have a yurt, maybe, I don't know, maybe 300 meters away from where we are now in the Gypsy Caravan, and we had a little veggie patch down there. It looks amazing, but yeah, and we had the irrigation system, so we didn't actually go down there as often as the rest of the garden, and then. Like after a few months, it's just like a complete jungle with weeds and like, I don't know what's going on there.
It was so silly, but these things that you waste your time preparing the garden and planting the seeds, and then that's it. You know, you don't reap any harvest because everything just dies out there. You don't pick any fruit or vegetables.
Keep it manageable, and
close and manageable.
Yeah, close and manageable.
Other than this year that we won't talk about, how have you been finding?
True, like around here.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. Sorry,
no,
go on.
I'll say we won't talk about the gardening this year because obviously, as you said, that's we'll just write off 2021. How have you been finding the sort of no-till, no-dig layering of compost and mulch going for you?
Very good, and now I think because we have more animals, like the goats are pooping and. I have high hopes for next year. It's going to be a good.
And our worm farm is
we have a worm
really well.
Farm ready to move into a bigger area. So
we're about to split it. Yeah. And we have all these inputs now. We've got goat poop, we've got chicken poop, we've got the worm farm. So that definitely helps. Yeah. And this year we've decided like the irrigation system we set up needs a lot of maintenance all the time, you know, because either the algae from the well blocks up all the little holes, you know, and so this year we decided we're going to at the end of summer, pull all the irrigation out and redo it. Just layer it all up again. And hopefully next year will be a good year because we are going to need a lot more veggies because we do plan to start getting workaways. So we kind of can start doing a bit more work.
Yeah, we need it. Sometimes, not the whole year, because we love our time by ourselves, but it's good to have a few more hands to help you out with certain jobs. Even like certain things, it's just me and Luke. Luke is much bigger than me, much stronger, and he needs someone strong like him to finish certain jobs. So it will be good if we get some help.
It's pretty difficult, to do everything yourself. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense we always planned to get woofers or workaways, but we did want to be set up properly for it because we have woofed in places where, they weren't very set up and it wasn't an enjoyable experience for us. And when we do it, we want it to be awesome for us and for them, you know. So
come back,
we have to be proper set up for them so they're all comfortable and they absolutely love it.
Yeah. And so some people, when they move onto their own land, become vegan or vegetarian, and other people get into the whole animal husbandry and including the abattoir piece of it. Which direction have you folks gone?
We are meters. We are meat eaters. Sorry, meters. It's the short version. Meters. No, we do love our meat. Having said that, we recently had to dispatch one of our male goats because we ended up with 2 baby females and 2 males. Someone gave us one. So kind of we now realize that the male, basically a male, as soon as it becomes a teenager, it becomes a problem, you know. So it kind of makes it a bit easier. We did dispatch ourselves. I got one of my friends who's had a farm here for he has a goat farm for the past 6 years. So I got him round to show me how to do it and everything. Me being I used to be a chef, so the butchering part of it I enjoyed because it kind of got into my profession. But it went so smoothly that it was I wouldn't say a pleasurable experience, but I had built it up in my head, you know.
It was a positive one.
It was definitely positive because it was done so well and so humanely, and it happened so quick. I mean, his eyes glazed over straight away and died straight away. It's kind of, well, I was really, really not scared, but yeah, like I said, I built stuff in my head and I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. So this was the first time we're going to dispatch a larger animal. Kind of, we've done chickens before, but yeah, I wasn't sure. It might have turned us vegetarian. I didn't know which way it was going to go. You know?
I didn't know if I'd be able to eat him either, because I mean, I spend all my days with the goats, and they are like my kids. And this was a pretty hard experience for us, but it was
positive.
It was positive because he was really becoming a problem, and he was harming the other goats. Like, unless you live this life, you don't realize just how hard it is to have males in part of the herd, especially when there's too many. And it was as soon as Billy, because he had a name, Billy left the herd and he went off peacefully. And we knew he had a good life, and it just made everything so perfect. And this is the life we wanted. And I just realized, okay, we can't keep eating meat. We'll start eating less meat, which is very good for the planet anyway, and for other animals.
Yeah, definitely consuming less is part of it.
Yes.
But yeah, as soon as they become too hard to handle, when they become trouble, it's the same with chickens. You know, I have never killed a chicken before, and I had to do it over here. But they were like the cockerels. We had, the first time we bought chickens, we had 10, and 3 of them were cockerels. So as soon as you have more than one, they really harm the ladies. I mean, they were so big, and they were jumping on their backs, and they were ripping them apart.
Yeah.
As soon as one jumps on, then the other one sees it as competition, you know, to pass on his genes.
They all want to have a go.
So then the other one jumps on her, then the other one jumps on her, and they've got claws, you know, like, you know, and talons. They just rip talons. Yeah, they rip them apart. Yeah. So as soon as we saw, they're really hurting our chickens, which we basically had for eggs. Yes, we killed them and ate them. It was like, oh, thank God we did. The birds were happier and we were happier, apart from the fact that they used to attack you as well.
Yeah, they used to attack me. It just makes life easier when you minus the males. So this is something.
Except the human ones.
but even this is something really strange that I didn't know before I knew nothing before we had chickens. But when there's too many males, you know that they go and they break the eggs because they think they're not there. So you have chickens for eggs. They're harming the chickens. They're breaking the eggs. You end up with nothing anyway. So you kind of minusing these animals is helping you. This is how it's been from the beginning of time, really. Like, that's how animals, as soon as they're a problem, they leave, or they get killed, whatever, and then the herd is better and more calm.
And as I said, I mean, with a bigger animal, it was a much bigger delay than a chicken. I don't know why that is. I mean, but when Sarah went off with the other 2 goats down to the river, so the other goats don't see anything. Sorry, 3 goats. And when she came back, just the relief on her face. Firstly, that it went so well, that he went so quickly, and there was no suffering, and it was all humane and everything, and that we weren't all. That it was such a positive experience. The look on Sarah's face of relief that she doesn't have to try and handle him anymore because he was such a problem. We realized it was the right thing. It was the right thing, you know. And it also brings questions up about. I mean, we still buy store-bought meat, but we had to when we were eating it. Sarah wasn't sure she could eat it, right? So. When she did, you kind of have so much more respect for when you're eating it for the animal, and for him giving his life unwillingly. But it kind of questions what you've been eating. Like I said, we still buy store-bought meat, and what kind of life have they had? Most probably. And even a lot of people, because we did put a video out about this, we didn't show the actual culling, but we did talk about it and show the cuts of meat and everything, because we thought it was so important for people to question, number one, where their meat is coming from. And also a lot of people said, oh, I don't know why you named them, or why you did it yourself. Why didn't you take them to the abattoir? And I think this was a much better way to do it, because, I mean, in an abattoir, you have to put them into transport, with other animals. They're all stressed out. Most places, each animal is seeing the previous animal getting killed, So I prefer the way we did it with Billy is we got him up. He was just eating cork leaves, he didn't know what was happening. Put him on his back, closed his eyes, and he was just chewing cork leaves, no idea whatsoever. And he was gone in an instant. And it's the best way to do it, than having at least, he's had an amazing life and a crappy 1 second, I guess, I mean.
Yeah, but that happens to, I mean, if you're a meat eater, this happens to everyone's meat, that's where it comes from. But it's just really a hard subject to talk about. And we got very good feedback, but we got obviously some people who were very angry with us too, because this is what happens when you put out a video on YouTube and not everyone agrees.
Yeah, it's a dodgy subject.
But we thought, because our channel we're honest with everybody, and we are going through these new things that they're scary, and they're the fun things and sad things, and we want to share everything. But if people are looking to us to get ideas on how they want to live, and if they want to live the way that we're doing, I think it's important that they know what we're struggling with and what was okay for us. And there's a lot of,
if you're a meat eater and you want to be
self-sufficient,
try to be self-sufficient, this is something you're going to have to go through. So we thought it was a very important video to put out,
It was very interesting for me at the beginning of 2019. I actually got to go to an abattoir and follow the process of a group of sheep or lambs going through the abattoir. And I have to say, I found it, as a meat eater, I found it quite disturbing. I mean, to start with, the animals didn't look that healthy or happy to start with. And then the process wasn't, I mean, it was, I suppose by the textbook definition of humane, it probably was humane, but it didn't seem like it was from my outsider's perspective. And then later in 2019, I got to go hunting for the first time and saw a deer called a kudu being shot at 400 meters, and it's just there eating grass, and within a quarter of a second, it's lying dead. And I think that kudu experience, that deer experience, is very similar to your goat in a lot of ways, because I actually feel quite comfortable. I mean, I've still got half a freezer full of kudu meat. I feel quite comfortable eating that, because I know that it had a great life in the wilds, and it didn't even hear the crack of the gun, of the bullets before it was dead, because and that was it, over and done with. Whereas seeing the lambs going through the abattoir, where it was this drawn out hours worth of experience, I just think that not all meat eaters really know what it is that they're eating and what the process is actually getting it.
In fact, before we actually put the video out, we thought, okay, we're going to get a lot of hate from vegans or vegetarians, and I think we got more hate from meat eaters,
just because
because they didn't question it before, and then it made them question it once they saw that, because they saw that we did that, and then they were like, hold on,
one of our animals, and they're like, I can't believe you did.
We upset. I think we upset a few, meat eaters rather than vegans, kind of thing. I mean, because I think if I were a vegan, and I think I would look at people like us more favorable than people who just eat store-bought meat. You know what I mean? Because at least the animal didn't suffer.
Mm.
And it had an amazing life, and went quick. It didn't see its brothers and sisters getting murdered in front of it, you know? So in reality, the well-being of the animal, I mean, it was much better this way than, like you said, in the abattoir, you know?
Mm.
But we're so a lot of all of meat eaters, we're so far removed from the whole process, you know, where everyone just buys sliced up steak in a plastic.
A lot of people. I mean, I'm not generalizing, but a few people I know, they don't think that was an animal.
Yeah.
They just don't in their head.
No, our society, Western society is so far removed from the whole process.
So it is hard, but we're not gonna keep any secrets from anyone. You know, we're not gonna we're playing with one of the animals one day and then pretend that he went to another farm somewhere else just because people don't want to hear that we are eating our own meat. You know, I don't think that is honest. And
no, and our channel is about, I mean, us learning and hopefully our viewers learning with us. And like I said, this is a very important thing if you're a meat eater, eh?
But it is a hard subject.
It's a hard subject, and like I said, we didn't know which way it was going to go, you know? I mean, we could have, if I had gotten someone else and it didn't go smoothly, I probably wouldn't eat meat again, you know?
No.
If I had a bad experience with it.
And this is something more amazing. We do respect our meat more, obviously, and the meal was fantastic, but also we have a lot of meat left to make other meals, but we are using every single piece, every single bit of our.
I mean, we didn't use the stomach and the stomachs and the intestines, but hopefully in the future when we do it again, we might try and use the intestines for sausages. And yeah, we used everything, eh? I mean, from the hooves, I've got the hide in the freezer because I do want to tan it with the brain, kind of like the Native Americans do. But you do need to smoke it at one point, and at the moment over here we have a fire ban, so I chucked it in the freezer with the brain to do it in the future. The hooves our dogs got. Even one of our friends is going to make a little coin purse out of his ball sack.
I love it. What a great idea.
It's really every single piece. And when we kind of didn't know that you could use the intestine, so we're upset that we wasted them, really, because one of our subscribers actually told us, you know, you could use those to make sausages.
Yeah, I thought they only use pork, but I didn't know that. But yeah, next time we'll use that as well.
Even less waste. But this is just so amazing that you can use the whole animal. And he had a good life right up to, like you said, that second, just that last second before his eyes glazed over, he was alive and happy.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I agree. And are you using the bones for bone meal for the soil, or are you as a?
That's a good idea. Oh, I didn't think of that.
He's gonna make something.
I did keep the leg bone so far, and I also kept the skull. I cleaned it out and everything, and I was gonna make something out. I've got like a Dremel, a rotary tool. So I was planning to make some things out of that. But that's a very good idea. How do you break that down to make bone meal?
We'll look it up.
I'll have to look it up.
We'll look it up. Don't worry.
I would be guessing, but I use bone meal as an addition to add nitrogen to the soil here, and I would guess that you'd let the bone dry out, and then you need to just smash it all up into very small sort of rice grain size pieces, and then add it to the soil, and it works a little bit like biochar in as much as it releases nitrogen, but it also holds water and holds water into the soil as well, and other nutrients as well. So the only word of caution is don't be know your soil, because I made a mistake and put too much bone meal in and pretty much killed half the plants in one bed by too much nitrogen.
Fair enough.
Oh, it's definitely interesting, and we'll be YouTubing that later for sure.
Who'd have thought 15 years ago that the answer to doing anything on an off-grid property would be YouTube?
Yeah.
One particular one person, I forgot what we were doing, or we were doing an interview, but someone had said, like, yeah, you call yourself off-grid. No, I think it was just a message.
Oh yeah.
You call yourself off-grid, but yet you're on YouTube. We wouldn't even be off-grid if it wasn't for YouTube. Yeah.
And we're not primitive, we're off-grid. It's not the same.
No, it's not the same thing. But some people just think maybe off-grid means without modern day appliances. I don't know.
Yeah. So you have stepped into the YouTube rabbit hole of trying to work out how to make YouTube work for you. How have you found sharing your lives on a weekly basis for this time period with the rest of the world? What's been the ups and downs of it?
To be honest, it's really been positive, the whole experience so far. Maybe we're not big enough to get that amount of hate, as I mean, on YouTube, when you start watching videos, they say, if you don't get hate, you're not getting that out there enough, because obviously there's a lot of people who are see things differently to you.
Yeah, so we're not getting out there enough. Yeah.
No, but it's been so positive. I mean, we've met. Yesterday, we met a subscriber who came to Portugal, bought a piece of land, and they signed the contract yesterday, and we met them. We do meet some random subscribers, and
it's just so nice, because this woman was like, I mean, they started looking for property because she's soon retired, and she just started watching our videos, and we inspired her, to know that we touched one person's life, and just did that. Is just amazing.
Everyone we've physically in person met so far. Through, I'm sure we'll meet a few crazy people eventually, I guess, the odds, But so far, it's been absolute 99.9% positive. Even, I mean, we don't get much hate on the comments either, really.
No. The hardest thing was learning how to do everything. Like, we decided, okay, we don't, obviously money was going down. No one gives us a wage over here. So we said either we're going to have to leave the land and work, and come back to it, which doesn't work. Working on the land is a full-time job. So we thought of doing YouTube. Well, we had to learn everything from scratch. So we had to YouTube being YouTubers. I had no idea what anything was. So that was the hardest bit of starting YouTube, actually, just learning how to edit and learning how to get yourself out there.
And Sarah, I mean, it's been a running joke. Me and Sarah have been together, 20 odd years anyway. And I'm always taking the mickey that she's technologically challenged. She doesn't know how to use Facebook or Gmail or whatever. And then she goes on and learns all this, how to edit and, how to YouTube, basically. Yeah. And I can't do it because I can't sit in front of a laptop for longer than 30 minutes. And she somehow managed, out of pure determination.
Yes, I'm never leaving this land.
Yeah.
But you do what you got to do, to try and get some. So YouTube is working well for us. I mean, it's we're not at that stage yet where we can afford all our basic needs yet, but we're pretty close. Thanks to Patreon and YouTube, we're almost there. And then hopefully we'll grow enough to be able to start on other projects where we need to put in a project with the camera that you need a bit of money behind you. But we're getting there, and we're really not. I mean, we're patient and hardworking. So
and we enjoy this life, so we do take it slow. I mean, when we back in Malta, when we first bought our house and we spent 2 years fixing it up, I just hated it. I mean, just because it was like, come on, we've got to finish it so we can go off, rent out the place and go traveling, And that's one thing that I wanted to be sure is that to just enjoy the life and do things slower and enjoy the whole process.
Enjoy the living, not just doing something to get somewhere. It's just enjoying it while it's happening, which is one of the most important things in life.
So another YouTube linked question is, So a lot of people see this. I don't know. They're going to say they're going to buy themselves a sailing boat and set off around the world and launch their YouTube channel and so on and so forth. Just as an example, how many hours in the week does it take to go and film your weekly episode, edit it, upload it, work out the SEO, thumbnails, all that other sorts of stuff?
Well, we're still trying to get better, because sometimes, like right now, we were doing much better, but then because of our equipment, now everything is taking a little bit longer. So first we started out with a really bad computer. So it used to take hours and hours and hours to edit. The filming was so bad because we just film while we work, but just waiting for the computer to try and catch up with the actual program that I was using was really, really hard and very, very...
Yeah, I guess I think one of the things that you have to kind of... Well, we're hopefully, anyway, we're constantly improving. I mean, you know, we look back at our earlier videos and we go, oh my God, what did we do there? You know, so that's a good thing where you look back and say, oh my God, look at that video. What did we do? You know, but I think if you have the right equipment, it will be much quicker. Obviously, you know, like at the moment we're working with, we're filming the sound separately and the video separately, so we waste a lot of time syncing all the videos. You know. So if you do have the funds to invest in the right equipment, that will make your life much, much easier. But also just incorporating the whole process, everything into your daily life, where you kind of get used to it, you know, where you're like, you get used to filming every day, where it's not a big deal. So we're slowly getting there, I think.
Yes. Like in the beginning, that's why we can't really say how long things take, because we are getting better at it. But when we used to film everything, and then you have to go through all the footage, and you have hours and hours and hours of footage.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing we learned.
So yeah, it takes time, but you have to learn what to film, and if you can plan it from before, obviously it makes a lot more sense. Yeah. And what we have learned is, if you come up with your title first and your thumbnail, then it's easier for everything to flow. Even though we don't do it all the time. But it does make more sense to come up with your thumbnail and title first, and then do the video accordingly, rather than the video and then come up with the thumbnail and the title. So yeah, we're getting.
It's a learning process, but we like to think that we're improving every day.
We started last year YouTube.
A year and a few months.
We've been a year and a bit. Yeah. So, but the first couple of months were just down the toilet, because I was concentrating more on Molly rather than on our life. And we just decided to change the channel because it's more interesting, you know, for people who want to learn about our life. There's a lot more to share. And yeah, I think it's only been positive though, really. Like all the comments that we get, we've been learning so much from our subscribers. They just want to help us. They just want to say, okay, they've been doing it for so many years, and they're just interested in our progress, and they just give us useful advice that we've been taking. And yeah, when we first started, I just thought we were going to share our experiences. I had no idea that we were going to learn so much too from the people following us.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's been awesome.
Awesome.
That's super cool. And if you look out there, most people who start a YouTube channel, normally it's a 2 to 3 year journey before you actually get like real traction. It's just committing to something with blind faith in the knowledge that if you do the right thing, eventually the right results will come.
Yeah.
I think one of the main things which I remember Sarah telling me when she started watching all these videos on how to become a YouTuber and all that, is not to give up. That's basically it, you know, just keep going and keep improving, trying to improve.
Yes, because too many people, I mean, if you spend so much time, in the beginning, we're spending a lot more time on our videos, obviously, and then you spend so many hours, you think it's good, even though now looking back it wasn't, but then you get 20 views on it.
It's very disheartening.
It's really, really hard to keep going if you're going week after week and no one's watching these videos. But I did read, if you don't give up, you will get there, like everything else, you know. If you keep doing what you're doing and you want it badly enough, you will get somewhere.
Yeah. You'll keep learning, you'll keep improving, and hopefully eventually it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before we spoke, you said that there's some secret projects that are going on your farm. So we're going to steer clear of that until you're ready to announce.
Our master plan.
There are projects. It's a secret plan. It's a master plan, but we haven't started yet because we're not there yet with money and all
with
that.
The funds. So. Yeah, when we put in the project with Town Hall, because we do plan to get EU funding as well, and in fact, one of our subscribers, who's an accountant, offered to help us with all that as well. Then once we've got it in and there's no chance of anyone stealing our idea, then we can talk about it on our channel.
Awesome.
But it's awesome.
up until then, you can both stay like a pair of James Bond villains or something like that with a secret plan tucked up your sleeve.
Yeah.
But so let's not go down that path. But what I am interested about is, and I don't know where I'm going to go to with this, but like it strikes me that there's almost a small group of what everybody else would call normal society that is choosing, because of COVID and economics and all sorts of things, climate change, to actually go and buy their piece of land. And you know, I noticed this year, my seed order, I had to put it in about 5 weeks earlier than normal. Otherwise, the guys were like, if you put it in at normal time, you won't get your seeds. So it's obviously growing in popularity. What do you think the future is for off-grid living? Are we going to continue seeing more and more people buying land and doing their own thing?
I think so.
I think judging by the amount of people who we've come in contact with, subscribers obviously, who are making this change just because they have jobs that they could do remotely.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They're making that change because they realize that their quality is going to go up of life, and they're still going to be earning the same amount of money. All they need is a nice place to settle and internet.
So, I mean, a lot of people have questioned the way they're living just because of this. I mean, like, one of our subscribers, in fact, one of our friends now, he was teaching online. He's a teacher, and he used to have kids come to his place in London. And then when COVID hit, he changed to working remotely and through Zoom and everything, giving lessons through Zoom. And then he thought to himself, "Hold on, I can do this from anywhere in the world. Why am I here in London, where I can be wherever I want to be?" So yeah, definitely questioned a lot of people. It made people question the way they're living and the freedom of working remotely.
I think now people have changed their minds. They're just going to keep going and influencing others, and it's going to be awesome, I think. It wasn't a good experience, obviously, for a lot of people, but the outcome might be that we are going to be kinder to the planet, and we are going to be helping others, you know, which hopefully they're something they've been wanting to do for ages, and they can take the plunge now.
And I think even just this life consuming less is definitely up there.
Yes.
You know, it's very wasteful.
Because a lot of people can't wrap their heads around how they could live with less. You know, when we bought our house here in South Africa, the one I'm actually talking to you from now, my wife was very concerned that we had, you know, at least one shopping mall within a couple of kilometers and this, that, and the other. And she always liked the idea of living on a plot remotely or a small holding remotely, but not having the modern day amenities about her was something she couldn't understand. And, you know, 18 months later of COVID, where I think we've been to the shopping mall once in that 18 months because of COVID. Suddenly she realized, actually, we don't need all of that stuff. But people have to go through a journey to work out what's important and what's not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people in cities, I mean, you know, you're working 5 days a week, you know, and just so you can afford the house you barely live in.
So true.
You know, to pay the mortgage and all the bills. And there is a better, in our view anyway, there is a better way. There is definitely a better way.
And it's true, the less time you spend going to shops, because now we go to shops even less than we used to, you spend less on rubbish that you don't need. So even just treats and sweets and chocolates and stuff.
Yeah, we saw a drop in because we do like see how much we spend every month. Obviously, we're on a budget. But when we had our first lockdown, we went to the shops and we bought enough food, especially dry food, for like 3 months. We didn't leave the land. I think 2.5 months was because we always try to see how long we can just stay on the land without going shopping. Yeah. And with that lockdown, it was awesome because we spent so much less on food because we didn't go to the shop. Instead of going once a week or once every 10 days, we went once over 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And we spent so much less, but we ate awesome food.
Yeah,
it wasn't
it's not only like the food wise, like even a lot of our friends do this too. Like if you go to Lidl, which is the shop that has a lot of these like appliances that you might not necessarily need, or like a lot of people go there and they end up walking out with a few things that they don't need, want, or will ever use.
But it's there.
And this happens to a lot of people we know. So I think just going to these places less helps you save a lot of money. And if you're not buying them, you're not wasting them, because if you don't use them, then you're just wasting the thing you bought anyway. So.
Yeah. So true. And it's very interesting things that that I learned during COVID is I think we get very complacent on the ready availability of food in supermarkets. And I suddenly found out, and I've got friends who live in the USA and obviously the UK and here in South Africa, if the transport network bringing food to to stores, if that just has to stop for 2 or 3 days, the stores are empty in 2 or 3 days. There isn't anything there. And for my wife and I, we're like, well, actually, we're actually living in a false sense of safety and a false sense of like reality, because you don't see the trucks that are driving through the night to go and ensure that there's lettuce that was picked 4 days ago in the store ready for sale. And so you don't realize just how short a disruption can actually stop you having that stuff. Whereas lettuce in the garden, you can always go pick.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people, even still living in cities, have at least started a garden, so they're doing a little bit of, their own growing.
Yeah.
But it has changed a lot of people's minds, how people think, definitely. And for the better, I think.
Definitely. I mean, like COVID didn't really affect us much over here. I mean, I don't want to make people angry, because it affected so many people. But the only thing that really affected us was not having our friends visit, because of all the restrictions. Now, before we had this life and I was a chef, I remember when I first became a chef, apart from having a passion for food and for cooking, I remember as a 17-year-old saying, I'll never be out of a job, and which was true up until COVID. I mean, wherever we went in the world, I was always the first one
to get a job.
To find a job. It was never a problem. I could always find a job in no matter which country we're in. And this COVID hit our industry, I mean, pretty hard. And bars and restaurants, they had it really, really hard. I mean, all my friends back home in Malta, a lot of them have really, really struggled. So we're pretty happy we kind of took this decision before that all hit. We're pretty lucky.
Yeah.
It's funny, chefs and restaurant owners, but also I found recently airline pilots, thousands of them that are no longer working because of reduced travel and reduced flights and whatever else. If you think about it, if we'd have all sat down, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago and said, what are the top professions where you're going to earn the most? Probably airline pilot would have featured in and amongst accountant and lawyer. And yet there's thousands of them who are jobless and have no other qualifications. It's been a very interesting time for people in different professions.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you think you've got that security, and then something like that hits, and yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
So my final question for you both is: there's going to be people who are listening to this who have been sat on the fence thinking and talking about getting their piece of land or their cabin or whatever it might have been for years. And it's very tempting just to tell those people to pull the trigger and go do it. But really, why should they go and buy their piece of land or their cabin, change their life, and live differently?
I don't know, but me and Sarah have always been when we get an idea to do whatever it is, not only buying a piece of land and trying this, we always kind of just did it. Yeah, you know, even when it came to traveling, we have a lot of friends who go, over the years have told us, I'd love to go and do this or go traveling there, and then they just talk about it and never actually do it. So we always just go for it, you know, because otherwise I always think if we'll regret it in the future if we don't, and if you don't try, you won't find out. And
I find that you'll always regret the things you never do, not the things that you do. So if they really are on the edge of their decision, just go for it. If they can do it now, it's better than doing it in a couple of years. Maybe they won't have the funds then, or I don't know. But it's very much like if you were thinking of doing it and it's there, it's not for everyone, obviously, but just go for it.
And especially for people like me and Sarah who don't have kids. I mean, you don't have that responsibility of another life, you know. I mean, people who have kids do this all the time. We have plenty of friends here who have kids, you know, and do it, and big respect to them, you know. But I think not having kids for us, at the end of the day, it makes it much easier. I mean, even when we were traveling, you know, I remember we were working and doing our working holiday in Australia, and went to Indonesia and ended up coming back to Australia with $50 in our pocket, you know. But if it's just you and your partner, you can't take that risk if you have a baby to feed, you know. But since it's just us, at the end of the day, it was like, we'll get by, you know. We'll sort it out, you know. Boom, we found a job, boom, and started saving again, and it was all right. And I guess it's the same with this. We don't have that responsibility of another life in our hands, kind of thing. And at the end of the day, if we run out of money, we can go and find a job. And we're EU citizens, so there's plenty of places for us to look for a job. So that kind of makes it easier for us. But I would say, I guess, for people who are on the fence, like you say, I personally would want to go for your dreams, no matter what they are, you know.
It's true, because once you go for it, okay, you might think, okay, what did we do? Because at some point you're bound to go, oh no, maybe it wasn't the right thing to do. But if you just keep going, say like you're gonna get somewhere, and it's gonna be, if you've been dreaming of doing it, it's gonna be something good.
And also, we're big believers of no matter what happens, at the end of the day, as long as you're willing and learn from it, you've gained something, you know.
Yeah,
you've definitely gained something.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. A lot of people I've spoken to are very worried about the money side of things, and in particular about buying something with their savings that you know, they may end up losing their savings. And I've often said to people, you know, if you're 40 years old, you haven't saved all that money over 40 years. You probably saved it over 8. And so if it all goes wrong, you know, in 8 years' time, you're back to where you are now, and now you know how to save the money and have that discipline and whatever else. So, do you really have that much to lose? And I think the answer is probably not. There's probably more to lose by not giving it a go than actually pulling the trigger and getting on with it.
Yeah, and as well, I mean, over here, which is good for us, I guess, property is going up. So at the end of the day, if it all had to go down the toilet, you know, we still have, instead of spending the last, 3 or 4 years traveling and the money just being spent, in a way, we obviously did invest in something concrete that's there, that at the end of the day, if we're over it and it's all gone wrong, we can sell it and not have wasted all our savings, you know? Not that we want to.
Not that we want to, and not that traveling is a waste of money, because everything we've learned from traveling, you can't really put a price on.
No, not at all.
Any of the experiences we've had. But I think that's the only time you don't waste money.
Yeah, true.
When you get the experience from
life
traveling
experience,
too. Yeah, but yeah, just go for it, guys. If you're listening to this, because we haven't been happier. You know, it's so rewarding, this life, and you do learn a lot. And just the fact that you're learning things every day, and yeah, it's just makes you want
it's not for everyone, but if you're really dreaming about it, then maybe it is for you. And like I said, no matter what the dream, not only just buying a piece of land and doing this, we always believe in going for what you dream for. I don't see a point of putting all these dreams into your head and then never doing them, because I think over the years it'll get to you. I mean,
you just have this one life, so
yeah, exactly. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all going to die at some point in time, so you may as well make the most of what you've got.
Exactly.
Make most of it. Just enjoy it the best you can.
I agree.
And for me, it is having a piece of land with 100 million animals on it, but we're not there yet. We've just got a few.
100 million. Well, and you mentioned about kids, and you are right, because I have 2 kids, and we are just stepping out on our own journey, and it does require some more thought, because you do have an increased level of responsibility. But
for sure,
it's still, you know, especially with things like Elon Musk's Starlink internet, and now you can live and work as long as you've got internet. You pretty much can work anywhere. It's still very, very possible to go and live somewhere remote, beautiful, and make it all work, and still be a responsible parent who's got medical insurance for their kids or whatever. It's just a bit.
Yeah.
The kids, as you say, the kids add another level of complication, but I think the benefit for the kids is immense. So
for sure. I mean, we have many friends, like I said here, who have kids. Compare their lifestyle, where in a city where the parents are, I mean, most of the time are at work, you know. Over here, they're every day with their kids in nature. It's just amazing to see, eh?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously we don't have kids, but I treat my dog like a kid, and she is my will.
It's not the same, apparently.
No,
okay?
I know it's not the same. But even though he's comparing stuff, but I compare having a dog in Malta and it being stuck in a tiny house, and then to Molly's life, and she goes out and she has the best life ever. She hunts and she runs and she plays outside.
And she's with us 24/7.
We always like. My mother has a dog who's stuck inside and is just living for the walk that they get, and it's kind of the same thing with. I mean,
parents going off to work, you know.
Mm.
I mean, don't worry, I'm not comparing the dog to the kid. I know your kid is much more of a responsibility than a dog. But what I mean is the way of life. Like the kid gets so much more from being outdoors and helping you garden and playing outside and just not having to be inside in front of the computer all the time. Or in front of the TV.
I agree, and we've got 2 children and 2 dogs, and I do sometimes think that the 2 dogs have a better life than my kids. To be honest with you, the way they get treated or spoiled. So maybe there's more similarities between the dog and children than you'd realise.
I think so. I do think so.
So you have 4 kids.
Yeah, that's it. I have 4 kids. Damn it, and the expense of 4 as well. So Luke and Sarah, I just want to say thank you from the world at large for living a life and sharing a life to show other people what is possible, to showing people that you don't have to be some super construction, engineering, farming person to go and buy a whole big plot of land and say, we're going to make it work for us. And showing that with a willingness to learn and a willingness to genuinely work hard, you can go and have a lifestyle that is probably 5 or 500 times better than what you could elsewhere. So for that inspiration, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thank you so much for this lovely chat.
If people want to follow you folks, obviously there's a YouTube channel and that's going to be in the description below. Is there Instagram and Facebook and those things as well?
We have an Instagram and a Facebook, and you can get get to those from our YouTube channel too.
Yeah, there's all the links in our about page on YouTube. And
cool.
Yeah, well, yes.
No, I was saying cool. So I want to encourage everybody to go and check out your YouTube channel, Sarah and Luke Off-Grid Life.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, go do that.
We're managing this life because of everyone who's interested in our journey. So we can't thank you guys enough if you decide to follow our journey too.
That's cool. And while you're there, as well as our channel, go and hit a big subscribe on their channel and on our channel as well. And share the love, because every subscribe helps us feel more loved in life. So go do that. But apart from that, Luke and Sarah, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Rob.